Panoramic views of ancient battlefields, bleached bones baking under a merciless sun. Is this the price of immortality? The dust of ages obscures so much, but some names, some echoes, they refuse to be silenced. Alexander. Even across millennia, the word hangs in the air like the scent of battle smoke. Alexander the Great. A military genius, a king at an age when most of us are still struggling to find ourselves, an architect of an empire that stretched further than most men of his time could even conceive. From the sun-drenched plains of Greece to the exotic edges of India, his name was whispered both in fear and admiration. In this series, we're not just retracing the steps of a conqueror. We're prying open the history books, dusting off the fragments, and trying to understand the man behind the myth. Join me as we break down the top 10 victories that forged the legend of Alexander the Great. Imagine, if you will, the weight of history pressing down on an 18-year-old's shoulders. The kind of pressure that could either forge a legend or crush a soul. Not just any teenager, but Alexander, son of Philip of Macedon. Already a byword for military might, a young man who had been groomed for greatness from the moment he could walk, tutored by none other than Aristotle himself. The year is 338 BCE, the place Chaeronea, a small town in Boeotia, Greece, which would soon become the stage for a monumental clash. It's not a name many know today, but it was here, amidst the dust and the screams, that Alexander tasted true battle for the first time. The air was thick with tension, the ground trembling under the weight of thousands of soldiers. The Greeks, those supposed bastions of freedom and democracy, found themselves staring down the Macedonian war machine. A coalition of city-states, Athens and Thebes, had united to resist the rising power of Macedon. Athens, Thebes, these were not names to be trifled with. They were the heart of Greek culture and military prowess. Their histories rich with tales of valor and intellect, they fought with the desperation of men who knew their world was on the precipice of change, and change it did. The battle was fierce, a maelstrom of clashing swords and piercing cries. Picture the scene. The Macedonian phalanx, a bristling wall of shields and spears, grinds inexorably forward. Each soldier moving in unison, a testament to their rigorous training and discipline. But it's on the flanks where the battle is often decided. The maneuvering of cavalry, the swift and decisive strikes that can turn the tide. Alexander, barely a man, finds himself leading the companion cavalry, the elite of the Macedonian army, his heart pounding, his mind racing with strategies and the weight of his father's expectations. Across the field stands the Theban sacred band. 300 warriors, lovers bound by oaths and honed to a razor's edge in battle. Their reputation was formidable, their unity unbreakable. For generations they were the stuff of legend, unbroken, unbowed, until that day. The clash between these two forces was not just a battle, but a collision of ideals and destinies. History records the clash, but can words truly capture the chaos? The clang of metal, the raw terror and exhilaration of such a moment? The battlefield was a cacophony of sound, a blur of motion and emotion. The Theban band fought with the courage of cornered wolves, but against Alexander's fury, they were destined to break. Their legendary unity shattered under the relentless assault. This wasn't just a battle, it was a coronation, a moment that would mark the rise of a new power, a new era in the annals of history. On the blood-soaked field of Chaeronea, the world got its first true glimpse of Alexander's potential, a potential that would soon reshape the known world, carving his name into the bedrock of history. This was just the beginning, the dawn of a journey that would see Alexander become one of the greatest military minds the world has ever known. From the fields of Chaeronea to the far reaches of Persia, his legend was only just beginning to unfold. The 6 years have passed since Chaeronea. 6 years for Alexander to stew in his father's shadow, to hone his skills, to nurture that ambition that burned within him. During these years, he wasn't just a prince waiting for his turn. He was a warrior in training, a strategist in the making, and a leader preparing for greatness. With Philip's assassination, the throne passes to the young king, and with it, the unfinished business of the Persian Empire. Alexander, now king, inherited not just a kingdom, but a mission, a vision that his father had begun but could not complete, the Persian Empire. Imagine, if you can, a realm so vast, so wealthy, it dwarfed anything the Greeks could imagine. It was a land of immense riches, sprawling cities, and a military might that seemed insurmountable. To conquer Persia was to achieve the impossible. This wasn't just about conquest, it was about legacy, about stepping out of the shadows and into the light of history. For Alexander, it was a chance to carve his name into the annals of time, to be remembered not just as a king, but as a legend. The Granicus River, a relatively small obstacle you might think, but it was here that the Persians, under the command of their satraps, chose to make their stand. This river, seemingly insignificant, would become the stage for a pivotal moment in history. They expected the Macedonians to hesitate, to be cowed by the sheer size of the Persian force arrayed against them. The Persians, confident in their numbers and their position, believed they had the upper hand. They had misjudged their foe. Alexander was not one to be intimidated by numbers or by the daunting task ahead. Alexander, as he would so often do, led from the front. He was not a king who commanded from the safety of the rear. He was a warrior who fought alongside his men, sharing in their struggles and their triumphs. Imagine the scene. Macedonian troops, hardened veterans of countless campaigns, charging into the teeth of enemy arrows, the icy water of the Granicus swirling around their legs, the clash of metal, the shouts of warriors, the chaos of battle. It was a test of courage and resolve. The Persians, we can imagine, must have been stunned by the audacity of it. They had expected a cautious approach, a measured advance, but instead they faced a relentless assault. This wasn't how battles were supposed to be fought. The conventional wisdom of the time dictated a more strategic, less direct approach, but Alexander was never one for convention. He thrived on boldness, on taking risks that others would shy away from. His tactics were as unconventional as they were effective. He fought like a man possessed, even suffering a blow to the head that nearly ended his conquest then and there, yet, even wounded, his determination did not waver. His men saw their leader bleeding, yet still fighting, and it spurred them on. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. Alexander's destiny was not to fall at the Granicus, but to rise, to continue his journey towards greatness. Inspired by their king's ferocity, the Macedonians broke the Persian line. The sight of their leader, undeterred by injury, fueled their own courage and strength. The victory at Granicus was more than just a military triumph. It was a statement. It was a declaration that Alexander and his Macedonians were a force to be reckoned with. Alexander had arrived, and the ancient world would never be the same. His victory at the Granicus was the first step in a campaign that would change the course of history, a campaign that would see him become one of the greatest military leaders the world has ever known. Fresh from his victory at the Granicus River, Alexander's war machine rolled on, a force of nature seemingly unstoppable. His army, a well-oiled machine, moved with precision and purpose, their spirits high from their recent triumphs. But the ancient world was full of surprises, and at Halicarnassus a different kind of challenge awaited. This city was not just another dot on the map, it was a symbol of Persian resistance. Forget the pitched battles, the clash of armies on an open field. Here, the rules of engagement were different. Halicarnassus was a fortress city, a bristling hedgehog of stone walls and defensive positions manned by some of the finest soldiers the Persian Empire could muster. These were seasoned warriors ready to defend their home to the last breath. This wasn't a fight that could be won with bravado alone. This was a siege, a test of endurance, strategy, and sheer willpower. Imagine, if you will, the sheer scale of the undertaking, the logistics, the planning, the constant pressure on both sides. Months dragged into years as Alexander's army surrounded the city. The Macedonians set up a blockade, cutting off supplies and reinforcements, hoping to starve the defenders into submission. Siege towers, those lumbering behemoths of war, inched their way towards the walls, each step a monumental effort, only to be met by a storm of arrows, stones, and Greek fire. The defenders were relentless, their resolve unbroken. The defenders of Halicarnassus fought with the tenacity of cornered animals, launching counterattacks whenever possible, launching daring night raids, hoping to catch the Macedonians off guard. These nocturnal assaults were designed to sow chaos and fear among Alexander's ranks. But Alexander, ever the adaptable commander, countered their every move. His leadership was a blend of audacity and caution, always keeping his men focused and ready. He seemed to possess an almost preternatural ability to anticipate his enemy, to stay one step ahead. His strategies were not just about brute force, but about outthinking and outmaneuvering his opponents to stay one step ahead. His generals and soldiers trusted him implicitly, knowing that their leader had a vision and the means to achieve it. And then, after months of brutal, grinding warfare, the walls finally fell. The breach was a turning point, a signal that the end was near for the defenders. The stories tell of unimaginable carnage, of streets running red with blood. The final assault was merciless, a testament to the ferocity of ancient warfare. Victory, even for Alexander, came at a terrible price. The cost in human lives was staggering, a grim reminder of the horrors of war. But the message was clear. No city, no matter how impregnable, could stand against the will of Alexander the Great. His name would be etched in history, a conqueror who reshaped the world. From the shores of the Aegean to the banks of the Indus, Alexander's empire sprawled across the map, a testament to the ambition and ruthlessness of one man. But empires, like men, are mortal. What is legacy? Is it measured in the miles conquered, the cities sacked, the blood spilled in the name of ambition? Alexander's empire, vast as it was, would splinter and fracture in the years after his death. The maps would be redrawn, the names of kings and dynasties forgotten, but the idea of Alexander, the audacity of his conquests, the sheer force of his personality, that's something that continues to echo down through the ages. He remains, even today, the benchmark against which all other conquerors are measured. The question perhaps is not how big an empire he built, but what it says about us, that we're still so captivated by the story of the conqueror all these centuries later.